Hey, welcome in. What's going on, guys? I wanted to showcase my Green Kid deck as the Treasure Cup is coming up this upcoming week and lasting for the entire month of February. I figured it'd be a good time to showcase like what numbers I think really work with this deck. I know that there's a lot of people out there that have made content around Kid already and kind of explained what they thought was the right number and maybe not have drawn conclusions as to why they got to those numbers. And for me, I just hope to throw this out there and maybe some people will see it and be, oh yeah, that makes sense, or no, you're an idiot. So regardless, I wanted to at least showcase the Green Kid deck that I'm running. It has a 60% win rate in person play, like IRL life, you know, that would go outside and touch grass, that thing. So I figured it's an okay deck, you know, it's pretty consistent. 60% is a not a bad number. It is much better in the simulator though. And I think part of the problem why it's 60% not higher is because of the pilot, not necessarily the deck or the number. But regardless, I wanted to show off the deck itself and explain why I got to the numbers, and maybe some people will agree with me and can give me some feedback. That's also something I'd really like too. But let's start off with the low end here. We have two Momos. I think I've seen a lot of people run this at 4, and some people run it at 3, and I think 3 is also a decent number. I think 4 is way too much for this deck, but particularly for me, the reason I'm running just 2 is because in my deck I have twice as many supernovas as I do Wano County or Land of Wano characters. And so it makes more sense to see half of the Momos, half of the searchers for Wano as compared to the Bonnie. So that being said, I am running 4 Bonnies. I think that if you're running this deck, you shouldn't run anything less than 4 Bonnies because this card will search all of your win conditions, whereas like the Momos will search for things early game for you, like the Nekos, even your 2K counters, maybe even Okiku if you don't see it in opening hand. The Bonnies will search for your win conditions, so that being like Hawkins, your 7-drop kid, your 8-drop kid, of course. That's something that I think a lot of people will need to search for with Bonnie. So 2 Momos, 4 Bonnies, I feel like that ratio is really good. At worst, all of these are 1K counters, which is a beautiful thing in this game. 1K counters save lives, people. So that's the searchers for me and the numbers I put them at. As far as the other 1-drops, 4 Beige, I think that's a necessary. Beige is just a really strong card, or Beige, Beige, I don't know. So many people pronounce it differently. Capone, how about that? We can't go wrong with Capone. So I think 4 is the right amount. This is your stereotypical 1-cost blocker. They're really strong and have them in pretty much every color except for purple. So you should include 4 of them. Any less than 4 is a little odd, and I haven't seen that in any other decks. So I think that's pretty much the standard that most people do. As far as the other blockers on the low cost, I have 4 Killers. This card is really good in the sense of it's able to protect your life, but also if you want to, you can invest a Dawn on it with 3 creatures on the board, or 3 characters on the board rather, magic term. And you can draw a card off of it, which is really nice. You know, any kind of card draw in a card game is pretty strong. So 4 of those is a must include in my deck. I'm running a really defensive package, by the way, so that's probably why I am running a lot of blockers. I think I'm running 10 in total. I think I'm running 10 blockers, and somewhere, no, actually more than 10. I think I'm running like 12 blockers and then like 10 2Ks. I'm playing super defensive, so when the 8-drop kid hits the board, I can protect it, because that thing is your win con in pretty much any matchup. To continue on, we have 4 of the Scratchman of Pooh. This card is only going to be played for your 2K counter. I mean, it's pretty well known at this point. It's only a 2K counter. There are some scenarios where you could run it against like Blue-Purple Croc, and the effect is basically resting one of your opponent's Dawn cards so that if they have an event, they can't play it. But for the most part, this is just going to be a 2K. Then on top of that, on the 2 drops, I have 3 Nekos. I've seen 4 for some people, and I can agree with that. I think 4 is a fine amount, but I'm only running 3 because I don't really care to see this late game. I want to see it early. I want to see it enough times to be able to like draw into it early for when you're going against red, you come across Nico Robin, or if you need to rest any blockers early, or if you just need to rest blockers late, sometimes it's not bad, but I'd rather see this early than late. So usually if you see 4 in a deck of something, it's kind of, you'll see it throughout the game, early and late. So I figured 3 is probably the right amount for there. And it seems to work out just fine. Also, a lot of these can be searched. Everything can be searched. So if you don't see it in your hand early, and you have a Momo, you're probably going to search for it with the Momo. You'll come across it. Also at 3 for the Wano package is Okiku. This is you could run 4, and I think that it might be a mistake that I'm not running 4, but I think for the most part 3 feels good. The reason why I'm only running 3 instead of 4 is I will see this most often in my opening hand. I'll see it sometime early game as well. If I don't get it in my opening hand, I'll see it in a draw, or I'll see it off of Momo if I search for it. But the problem with this card is it doesn't have a counter on it, so it can be a little bit of a hassle to have later on in the game. It's a great card to pitch for your leader for the effect, but the problem with it, like I said, is it doesn't have a counter power in hand. It's just a really strong early card game. You want to play this on curve. So 3 for me has been able to find it on curve and play it pretty early. It's a good threat, but late game, it's less of a concern for me. Also at the 3-drop spot, I have 2 Rhizos. I've seen 3 to 4 for some people. This is a really good card draw engine. The effect, for those that don't know, if it's tapped when attacking once per turn, and also if there's another character on the board, you're able to draw a card off of it. Great card draw engine. It is amazing when you're playing it with the 8-drop kid. You swing with the kid, and then you just swing at life for nothing, and you're able to draw a card off of it. So that's the effect that I love about this, is you're able to draw cards, but I don't really think it's a game changer in this deck altogether. I don't want to see it too often. I'm okay seeing 1 in a play, but I don't really want to draw into it too often. So that's why I run 2 of these. I think 3 or 4 might be a bit excessive, but if you're really wanting to card draw, then sure, that's fine. Also at the 3 spot, I have 4 Izos. This is your 2K counter, but the thing with this is, with most 2K counters, you're just going to play them as 2K counters. This is a 2K counter that you actually can play on the field for the effect. The effect being that it rests an opponent's character card for 4 or less, and that's really strong. So if you have 3 Nekos, you have 4 Izos, across the board from there, you're able to rest a lot of characters. And it sucks. It really sucks playing this card out and not having a 2K in hand, but the effect is just so strong that you're going to want to do. So run 4 of them because I want to see it multiple times during the game, either for the rest effect or for the 2K counter. To finish up the 3-drop spot, I have 2 killers. I was really iffy on this card. At first, I thought this card was horrible. I didn't like the 3K body. It didn't feel good. But going against a lot of red in my locals, I've noticed that I need to be able to pop their block, or I need to be able to pop their 3-drops or less that are arrested. So being able to pop a Zoro, being able to pop a Nico, stuff like that's great. You can also use it against Okiku if you go against the green mirror matchup. And what's also really strong about this card, which I admittedly didn't think so to begin with, is it plays off of life. It's a trigger, so if you pop it off of life, you can play it and get the effect for free. And also it's a 1K counter. At worst, it's a 1K counter. So I think it's a really good card. It's not great in purple matchups, but against red, red-green, and also the mirror matchup, you're going to probably want to see this at least once to gain some tempo back. Speaking about the Izos, I decided to put 2 Beppos in. I wasn't quite sure about this to begin with, but what I found is that if you're using Izo for the effect rather than the 2K counter, I want to be able to have more 2K counters in hand. And with that being said, this replaces the Izo. This is all it is. It's a 2K counter, and I'm not playing this card ever on the field. I'm just using it for defense. And I had Paradise Waterfall in this deck to begin with, and I was thinking, it's a 2K counter, right? Paradise Waterfall is a 2K counter you're paying 1 for, and the effect basically is you're paying 1 to restand something, which is pretty powerful. However, I would rather just not pay anything at all and just do the 2K counter for free and just not worry about the restand if that's the case. And so Beppo replaced my Paradise Waterfall, and I think it's been the right choice so far. I'm also running 2 into the 5-drop spot. I'm running 2 Laws. I think Law is it's not necessary in this deck, but when you do get the combo going, it feels good. So for instance, with this combo with the Law, you're able to bounce, like say you could play a Neko and then you play rest something, attack into it, play the law, bounce this back to hand, and then play this again to rest something else. That's great. You just use it to cycle things out. If you want to like cycle in your Okiku attack, and then you don't want Okiku to be a target for an attack, play law and then bounce it back up and stand it for free, basically, or not for free, but for good value. I think because this doesn't have a counter on it, you really don't want to run into it too often. Otherwise, it does feel a little clunky in hand. So that's why I have 2 of them. I don't even think 3 is necessary. It's not like a win con in the deck. It's just a nice little engine that you can use to synergize with some of your lower cost cards. But yeah, in the 5 spot, I'd rather see something else usually pop up. Also in the 5 spot, 2 X-Drakes. It's basically the same thing as the 3-drop killer, but you're popping something that's 4 cost or less instead of 3 cost. So this does really well against blue. Blue, people say that you're gonna like do really well against blue. Like usually kid decks do good against like Dofi decks. For the most part, that's true. But the thing with the Doflamingo deck is that it has a lot of early plays. It swings hard very early, and it can put you on the back burner. It can put you on the back foot, I mean. And so this will help bring some of that tempo back. You can swing into their characters and get them to use their counters to like be able to take counters out of hand, and then you play this down and make them waste those counters on your leader attack, and then the thing still dies. So I think this is a really good card. That's why I'm running 2 of these and 2 of the killers for a total combination of 4 on-play effects that kill something on the board, which I think is very valuable. Very, very valuable. This one I've seen in some decks. I haven't seen in all decks, but I'm running 2 Yamatos. I think this card is so good. If it can pop off, it's amazing. This thing has won me so many games when I've been extremely behind. What I'll usually do is I will make sure that I have the right setup, take their blockers out, let it sit on the field, don't attack with it, just threaten them. Just threaten them with that on the board and see if they have an answer. If they don't have an answer for a turn, you pile a bunch of Dawn on it, you invest a shit ton of Dawn, and you just swing. Just swing and then hope that it connects at like 9, 10K, and if it does, you have made a huge payoff. It doesn't matter if you spent a lot of Dawn on it. You just made them lose 2 cards from their life. It doesn't go to hand. Great against Zoro players, great against Luffy players, great against purple Kaido players, even good against green kid matchups. Honestly, this card's really good in most matchups altogether. So highly recommend trying it out. I put it at 2 because it's one of those where if I need it, I'll search for it, or I'll just see it drawing into it. I don't necessarily need this card. That's why it's only at 2. If you've noticed, a lot of cards that I don't necessarily need that are like kind of good cards, but just are situational, I'm running it to cards that I want to see that I think are really good, but maybe don't have the counter power. I'm running 3 of, and then cards I want to see early or just want to see consistently, I'm running 4 of. So 2 Yamatos is definitely, I think, the right move. Now this next one, I'm a little bit maybe hesitant to run just 2 of. I think Hawkins is one of those cards that's just, it's a beater. When it hits the field, if like red doesn't have a jet pistol for it, if green doesn't have Okiku out, this thing just, it beats. It's so good. The problem with it though, like I said with some of the other cards, it doesn't have counter power, so it does feel a little bit odd when you're not on curve and you draw this card. It's just kind of like, I'd rather be drawing into something else. But it's searchable with Bonnie. So if you're wanting to find it early and play against like your green matchup, this is great. This is a great card to have. I would maybe consider running 3, but I don't know if 3 is the right choice for me in this deck. I think 2 is good. I see it enough. I definitely see it enough through all of like the card draw that I have, and especially the searchers. But 2 seems to do the trick for me. I could see myself running 3. And I see a lot of people running 3 to 4. So I definitely would consider maybe 1 more, but I think for the time being, because this is a little bit more of a defensive strategy, I think that 2 is going to suit me just fine. Now for the more of the top end, we have 2 of the 7 cost kid blockers. This card is amazing against pretty much every deck except for, I'd say blue. Blue has great tempo against it with their Doflamingo 7 cost or their 9-drop Mihawk. You can just bounce it back to hand. Once again, this card doesn't have counter power, and so if it's in your hand, it's kind of dead at that point. But when you throw it down against your mirror matchup, this thing is so good against mirror matchups. This thing is great against purple because they can't do anything about it except play their board wipe, which sure, go for it, you know? So yeah, these I would run it to. Once again, I want to see it, but I don't want to see it like often. And if I need to see it, I'll search for it. So I think 2 is the right amount here. I don't think I'd increase it anymore. I think 2 is really good. And especially since I'm not running too much, like I'm not running any Paradise Waterfall in this deck, which has great synergy with this card, I think 2 is just fine. Once again, I've seen all these cards pop up many times, like at least once during a game. To round out the top end, 3 of the boogeyman of the meta, the OP01 meta. This card is your win condition. You need to find it. If it's in your opening hand, I would recommend keeping your opening hand. You're going to try to search for it for Bonnie if you don't see it. This thing is literally your win condition against most decks. I think purple might be the only deck that it's not really a win condition against, but it is definitely a savior in that deck as well to prevent some life loss. But overall, you play this out. If it can restand, you pretty much win. It's difficult for a lot of decks to take this out. Red has really good answers to it, but overall, red still struggles. Every deck struggles against this card. It's just so good. So yeah, 3 is the perfect amount. I think 4 is too much, and 2 is too little for me because I want to see that card. And then for the events, I'm running 3 Punk Gibsons. I think this is a really strong card in the sense that 4K counters are busted. People don't respect the 4K counter. 3 of these is the perfect amount for me because at least one of these sits in life. For whatever reason, one of these is always just set in life, and then when it pops out, it's basically like a straw sword for free. Love to see it. It always throws somebody off. And on top of that, if somebody is swinging into you, you can play this, defend yourself, and then rest a blocker or rest something and swing in and clear the board. I was watching a podcast recently with, I think it was like Yiham Yadam, I think is his name, and he was like interviewing a pro Dragon Ball super player, and the guy he was talking to was saying that 4K counters are so good, and I have to agree with that sentiment. The 4K counters, you should be running, I think, at least 2 in almost every deck, minus like Zoro maybe, but even then it's worth consideration. But at least in the kid deck, I'm running 3. I had it at 2, bumped it up to 3, and I've been extremely happy with it. This is a great defense mechanism for when 8-cost kid is out on the board. So that is the deck. That is the leader. This is what I'm taking to the Treasure Cup. It has been, so far on the simulator, been a really good test, and I think the deck does really well overall if you're able to pilot it well. And it took me a little while to understand how to pilot it correctly, but I think with enough playtesting in person and also over the internet, I think I'm ready for the Treasure Cup, and hopefully some people see this and can maybe take away some points here and be like, yeah, this is a good idea. Or maybe somebody in the comments can let me know if there's some things to be adjusted. But regardless, I think this is a strong deck. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I would be interested to see what I could maybe improve on, what you guys think of. What are you guys running? Are you guys going to the Treasure Cup? I have so many questions. You don't have to answer them all. Anyways, I'll try to upload more One Piece content. This is the first video of this kind, so hopefully you guys enjoy it and get something from it. Make sure to subscribe and like, and tell your mom about it. So thanks. Have a good one. See you later.